We had a lot of woods that were just big aspen, pretty uniform aspen, not much diversity. Some nice trees buried in there, but otherwise just aspen. And so I wanted to have some clearings, some trails, some old, some new, young regrowth, and just kind of mix up the woods a little bit, and then be able to maintain some trails and clearing, and let the other regrow, like you can see going on around. So it definitely changed the woods. It's an impact, but I think it got just what we wanted to. We get out in the woods a lot now. The trails are pretty easy to maintain from this point, and it changes it, but I'd say for the better. Otherwise, we just had pretty much big aspen everywhere.
So we could never use the woods out here because it was just so thick with trees, and now we have these great trails and openings, and we can walk all over the place. It feels good, and it's going to be great for the winter when we have our snowshoe trails. It'll be easy to just go snowshoeing without having to cut new trails. It's really awesome.
When we talk about habitat or benefits to wildlife or other animals on the landscape or in a forest or your woodlot, we talk about what the structure of the stand looks like. And what I mean by that is it's kind of like an apartment building for people. We have the ground floor, we have a bunch of middle floors, and we have the penthouse. And if you look at this particular area right now, we have a good herbaceous layer, or the ground floor, where you're talking about the ferns and some of the non-woody plants that are in the floor or the ground floor of the forest. This particular stand is kind of missing those middle floors, the 2, 3, and 4-story floors. It doesn't have a shrub layer. There's really nothing in the middle. And then it has the penthouse suite, but it has nothing in the middle. So if you were talking about an apartment building, it would be kind of like having a ground floor worth of apartments, and then a bunch of parking spaces, or empty space, and then an apartment way up at the top. So for wildlife, it's the same thing. The middle part right now has very little value for wildlife. So unfortunately, this area of Minnesota has a lot of overmature balsam fir across the landscape. As this resource ages and becomes older, the likelihood of the spruce budworm becoming a forest health threat to the area becomes more likely. Spruce budworm is a native insect that is cyclical in nature. It depends on aging and stressed balsam fir for its food source. So the more this resource ages, the more likely that the spruce budworm will become an epidemic. This stand, a year ago, it was fairly green. It was infested, but it was still healthy. Today, it's dead on the stand, standing dead and dying. which leads to a number of problems. One, it's not very useful for the forest products industry to have dead and dying product coming into the mills. It's not a viable product, it's not worth a lot, so it's hard to get it harvested. On the other hand, if you can't get it harvested and we can't get it taken care of, it becomes a fire threat. If you look in the understory, there are small balsam starting to come back actually in the understory already, and the stand will recover. If it was harvested, it will recover. We'll get another young, vibrant stand to grow in its place.
Once the wood chips are transported to Minnesota Power, they are scaled to determine their volume. After that, they go onto a receiving truck dump, where the entire truck is lifted up in the air. The chips are dumped back into a hopper, where they meet a series of belts which carry them into the Minnesota Power facility, at which they're emptied into individual boilers for the creation of steam that essentially goes to create process steam for Verso paper, as well as producing electricity for Minnesota Power.